So I watched the debate tonight and just wanted to give a few thoughts on it. I'm not gonna lie, I was very disappointed with Donald Trump's performance because to me, he looked very unprepared. And I had read reports prior to the debate that he wasn't going to prepare for the debate, that he was just going to go off the cuff. And I was like, please, God, no. It's like, surely that is not true. And after watching the debate, I was like, he didn't prepare for the debate. And this is a frustrating thing, a very frustrating thing about being a Trump supporter, because I know that Donald Trump has amazing policies for this country that have done so many good things for so many people, and he has so much to talk about on that. And he has so many good points that he could have made throughout the debate. And he has there's so much good ammo that he could have used on Joe Biden, and he just didn't do it. And I know it was because I can just see how this went. Because Trump, one problem I have with Trump, like I said, love his policies. That's why I support him. And I won't waver from that. And I understand, like, his personality is off-putting to people. I get that. I mean, it was off-putting to me tonight. But this election, like I said, it should be about policy, not about personality. And Joe Biden's policies would be a disaster for this country. But you got to communicate those things. And if you're going to communicate, you got to be prepared. And Joe Biden hasn't made a public appearance in the last 4 or 5, maybe even 6 days. And I guarantee you it's because he was in his basement doing practice questions like all day, every day, and polishing it so that he gets the best soundbite, is prepared for every single question he might be asked, whereas Donald Trump's just like, I'm just going to go completely off the cuff. It's going to be great. I can see exactly how this went. Like, I guarantee you his advisors are like, Mr. President, we really need to prepare for this debate. Can we just ask you, we just need to spend a few hours like asking you practice questions. He's like, I don't need to prepare. I'm going against Dementia Joe, and he doesn't even know what planet he's on. And don't worry about it. It's going to be fine, okay? So it's just frustrating. So I'm just gonna think through the debate. I didn't really take notes or anything, so it's gonna be just kind of off the top of my head. So it's bear with me. I might have to take a moment to think through everything. But like I said, I'm just kind of going off the cuff here. So I think the first really frustrating moment for me was when Trump was asked about his tax returns, because he has nothing to hide on that. Absolutely nothing. Chris Wallace asked him, is it true that you pay $750 in income tax? And, Trump should have just been like, if it had been me, I'd have been like, heck yeah. Because I have great tax accountants and great tax attorneys, and they gave me every write-off, every deduction, every tax credit that I was legally eligible for. There is nothing wrong with that. He has nothing to be ashamed about that. And this is, by the way, like, I pay more. Most people that are W-2 employees will pay more than $750 in taxes, because we're taxed at like 20 something, even 30 something percent, depending on what tax bracket you're in. But if you own a business, guess what? You can write off those expenses, and you have deductions and tax credits that you can take advantage of. And most of your income is going to be taxed at the corporate rate, not the income tax rate. And those taxes are lower because the government wants to incentivize investment in the economy. So like the capital gains tax, for instance, if you make money on an investment, you're only paying like 15%, but your income tax is going to be way, way higher, like 20, 30%. I don't know what the top bracket is right now. I want to say it's like 34, 35%. I'm not really sure. I can't remember, but it's somewhere up there. I know I paid like a crap ton of taxes. I don't even want to say how much I paid in taxes this last year. It's kind of embarrassing. But that's all he had to say. And he's like, I paid millions of dollars in taxes. I'm just like, yes, okay. That your businesses and all this other stuff, yes. But he's asking you, like, what did you pay in income tax? So just answer the question and be like, yes, because I have great tax accountants and great tax attorneys. He has nothing to be ashamed of for that. I was just very disappointed with the way he answered that question. So just want to clear that up. But what was next? When he was asked about the Supreme Court nominee, there's so many great things he could have said about Amy Coney Barrett. He was just very general about it, and he could have made so many great points about how she'll protect our religious freedoms and our Second Amendment rights and things that are important to his voters. Like, we got in California, churches having to shut down and be fined for trying to stay open and have services while Black Lives Matter is allowed to gather however many people they want. And it's a violation, it's a clear, blatant violation of First Amendment rights to freedom to assemble and to practice your religion. And it's also, it's not equal treatment under the law. You can't just, arbitrarily pick and choose who you get to give First Amendment rights to. So, and this is why we need conservative Supreme Court justices, because they will protect our religious freedoms. You think Joe Biden's appointees, like far leftists, are gonna let that, like the guy who refused to bake a cake for the homosexual couple because he felt like it went against his religious beliefs. Now, you can have an opinion on that, but at the end of the day, that is a protected right under the First Amendment. You have the right to freedom of religion. And I mean, there's just so many points he could have made on that. Like, it's possible, it's probable if Joe Biden gets, several appointees and is able to swing the court to the left, then, I mean, churches are going to be forced to hire gay, transgender, homosexual pastors. And I have nothing against homosexual people. I have nothing against transgender people. I've had lots of homosexual friends. I have a cousin who's transgender. I have nothing but love for those people. And, I'm all for equality and all of that. But there is, Christians and, religious people need to be able to practice their religion. And you can't force, like, churches, for instance, to hire a transgender pastor who's going to go up and preach things that go against what the Bible says. That's just not, it's a clear violation of First Amendment rights. And I mean, there's so much he could have gone into on that. So I was kind of disappointed with that. Another thing I was really disappointed with was, first, Chris Wallace didn't ask Biden at all about the biggest scandal that came out these last few weeks, which is his son and his family raking in millions of dollars simply because Joe Biden was president. And, they contributed money and funded like a sex trafficking ring, got all sorts of money from the wife of the mayor of Moscow, who is extremely corrupt. She made like billions of dollars. She's like a billionaire because her husband awarded all these contracts to her construction company, and she funneled that money to Hunter Biden, who then engaged in like a sex trafficking ring. And I mean, it's a whole long story. There's lots of articles about this, but Trump could have gone into that. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. And Chris Wallace could have asked Biden about that. It was kind of a big story this week, and he didn't ask him about it at all. So that was kind of disappointing. And he shut Trump down when Trump was trying to talk about it. Trump could have been a lot more polished on that. I was very disappointed when Trump was asked about why he's the best president for black people, because he has so many great things he could have said, and he didn't say any of them. He increased historically black or funding for historically black colleges and universities. I have a whole video about this, by the way, that Trump is a racist lie, part 3. He created the most inclusive economy, lowest unemployment rate for black Americans, got 5 million black Americans off of food stamps. The First Step Act, he freed thousands of black men who were sentenced to unjustly long crimes or long sentences as a result of minor drug crimes because of Joe Biden's 1994 crime bill. He talked a little bit about that, but not nearly enough. The opportunity zones in the Trump tax bill to increase funding for lower income communities, like minority communities. I mean, there's just so much he could have done it. And by the way, this is kind of where I'm gonna have to cut off the Instagram version of this video if you want to watch the rest, because we're only limited to 10 minutes on Instagram. But if you want to watch the rest, go on our YouTube channel. I'm not going to go too much longer because I got to get to bed. Okay, so just a few more points, then I really do have to go to bed. I wish I didn't care so much about politics because I would get a lot more sleep. I really need to work on that. I want to point out Joe Biden refused to answer the question as to whether he would pack the court Donald Trump asked it. Chris Wallace should have asked him that, but he refused to answer the question, which, packing the court would be like the Democrats win this election, they add 6 justices to the Supreme Court. Presumably they would be all far left justices. They would, abolish the right to bear arms. They would, green light anything, any type of abortion you could imagine up to the point of birth, even after birth, maybe. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of messed up stuff going on out there. And, churches might be required to hire pastors that don't line up with their views, with the church's biblical teaching. Like, for instance, a church might have to hire like a transgender pastor, and the Bible teaches that God created male and female, and there's, a purpose and a design behind that, it's, God does create a man and a woman to be husband and wife and to raise a child. And that's like God's model for how God designed the earth for us to have the most abundant life possible. And now I'm going to wax all theological. I'm not going to do that. I'm just saying that because I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit trail. But if the Democrats are able to pack the court and add a lot of left-wing justices, people are going to lose a lot of religious freedom, and the church is going to come under persecution. I mean, like I mentioned, that like John MacArthur's church in California was essentially shut down. I mean, they were threatening to put him in jail for keeping his church open and finding the church like over $100,000 last time I checked, I think. So there's just a lot to be concerned about on that point. And Trump could have gone after him on that. He could have gone after him way more on the Green New Deal. The fact that he went over after him a little bit on, how much it's going to cost to retrofit every single structure, every single home in the United States with green technology. Biden was trying to say, well, that's going to create 6 to 8 million jobs. Well, not really, because that's a job is when somebody starts a business and they need employees. The government doesn't make money. The government just takes money from the taxpayers. So the government would be paying all this money for all these homes and buildings to be retrofit with green technology, but they would be, we only take in $3.5 million worth of tax revenue every year. So where's the rest of that money going to come from to spend $100 trillion, which is an insane amount on these sorts of initiatives? And it's going to be the government borrowing money and paying it to people. And as well as I do, that is unsustainable. Like for instance, it's a simplistic example, but you can't just like live off your credit cards forever. Eventually, that money is going to become due. You're going to run out of credit. Sorry, I got the hiccups. You're going to run out of credit, and then you're going to go bankrupt. And it's, obviously that's a simplistic explanation, but the same is true of our government. We can't just keep borrowing money forever. Eventually, we are going to run out of credit. Nobody's going to buy U.S. Treasury securities, and then what are we going to do? We're just going to print money. How well did that work out for Venezuela? They're having to eat dogs in the streets and stuff. I mean, you just can't. It's completely unsustainable. And by the way, Trump he was asked about what he thought about climate science and all this stuff, and he could just say and he did say I believe that it does increase, he believes in greenhouse gases and global warming to a certain extent, which, by the way, there is not a consensus in the scientific community on that. There are people that disagree with the models, and all the models have been wrong. Al Gore told us, when did that Inconvenient Truth thing come out? Early 2000s, that we had 10 years left, and it's been well past 10 years. So it's like the goalpost keeps shifting. All the models are wrong. I don't really think these people know what they're doing as far as climate change. I mean, I've heard, gosh, I'm going down a rabbit trail. I'm not going to go down a rabbit trail. The point I was trying to make was that even if the entire U.S. economy shut down today, we had no carbon emissions whatsoever, it wouldn't even make a dent in the climate change, because you have China, Russia, India, all these other countries not shutting down their economies and putting tons of greenhouse gases in the air and pollution and all that. So why should we destroy our entire economy if it's not going to actually make a difference? You got to get all the other countries on board. So I think Trump could have made some points about that. What else? Let's see. He was asked about why he wanted to eliminate critical race theory and the teaching of systemic racism and the 1619 Project in schools. I mean, that's a huge topic. I'd actually like to do a whole nother video on that very topic, because systemic racism has basically become like a religion. Like, if there's any disparity between black and white whatsoever, the explanation has to be because of racism. And that's true to a certain extent if you look historically, and I can unpack that. That's a lot, but it's just the problem. Like, what I would have said if I were Trump, and I wish he would have said this. He did say, like, kids are being taught to hate America. They're taught that America is this racist country. Well, the problem with that is, if you're taught your whole life that you're a helpless victim of white people, that's how you're going to see yourself, and you're not going to be successful, because you're not going to think you can do anything. If you don't think you can do it, you won't do it. So it is harmful to our children, and it's just wrong to teach that America is fundamentally racist. Like, racist at its core. We have racist DNA or whatever is what's being taught. And, this country was founded on the idea that all men were created equal and were endowed with certain unalienable rights to pursue life, liberty, and property. And yeah, we didn't live up to that. Half the country was involved in slavery, which is a horrible thing. And then half the country was involved in Jim Crow, which was a horrible thing. But over time, we eliminated those things. Like, the founders, most of the founders were actually opposed to slavery. The only reason they allowed slavery in the southern states was because the southern states were so adamantly in favor of it that they wouldn't have even joined the Union. And so the founders foresaw that this would be eliminated eventually. And they made provisions for the slave trade to be abolished. For instance, after a certain point, they prevented slavery from expanding into new states, like new territories. And eventually, it came to a point where we had to fight a war to end this evil institution. And over time, like I said, this is just too much to unpack on this part of the video. But there are a lot of things that Trump could have said that, like, where's the evidence that America is systemically racist today? There's just, it's just not helpful. There are so many other explanations for what has happened in history. What has happened, for instance, like with LBJ, like Lyndon B. Johnson's welfare state, where he was targeting black people who had just gotten, were coming off of Jim Crow, and essentially paying them, not to have a father in the home. Like, these welfare programs were tied to the stipulation, like the condition that you don't have a father in the home. So, and that's, so many psychological studies have shown the importance of having a father in the home, and that kids that don't are at a much higher risk of getting into drugs and criminal activity and being arrested and spending time in prison. And so it's not, I would say if there's systemic racism, it's in the form of the Democrats' welfare policy, keeping Black Americans, basically targeting Black Americans after Jim Crow, getting them on welfare, and breaking down their families. Like, I mean, it's an undeniable fact. Prior to LBJ's Great Society, only 25% of Black children were raised in single parent families. By the time, after 2 decades of the welfare state and LBJ's welfare programs, it was up to it was like almost 80%, like 75, higher than 75%. So it's not accurate just to say if there's any disparity between black and white today, that it's because we are a systemically racist country. That's just not, there's no evidence for that. And it's like, I mean, another example, I'm going down a rabbit trail. I'm going to do a separate video on this because it's like a huge topic, but Trump he could have said a lot more things other than just kids are being taught to hate America. Trying to think if there's anything else that was huge that I'm leaving out. I'm sure there is. I really wish Trump had controlled himself more, and he constantly interrupted Biden. I mean, Biden interrupted him a lot too, but he just, he needs to demonstrate some more self-control. I mean, it's just a problem. But it just goes back to, like, yeah, he's got a lot of off-putting things about his personality, and he's, not careful with his words, says a lot of dumb things. He's just not a good communicator. I mean, he's great at his rallies. I cut off the last part of that video because I just started to kind of ramble because I'm just really tired and need to go to bed. So I'm going to do that, and I have some additional thoughts I'll try to share tomorrow once I've had a chance to review some of the clips, kind of rewatch some of it, think a little more about it, and yeah, I think I'll have some additional thoughts to share.